It's ClipperBlog Live. Fred Katz here for a very different ClipperBlog Live today. It's the first one ever without Donald Sterling as the acting owner of the Los Angeles Clippers. Clippers pull out a Game 5 win tonight, 113-103 over the Golden State Warriors to take a 3-2 series lead in the first round of the NBA playoffs. We got three guys here to talk about it. Of Hardwood Paroxysm and Warriors World, Jack Winter. What's up, Jack?
How you guys doing? Good to be here.
Of ClipperBlog, always with us, Patrick James.
Howdy, folks.
And also of ClipperBlog, our resident lawyer, Seth Partnow. What's up, Seth?
How's it going?
Unfortunately, or fortunately, before we get to tonight's game, we have to talk about the actions of today. Hello, Seth's wife. We have to talk about the
playoff widow.
We have to talk about the actions of today. And Seth, you're the resident lawyer here, and Donald Sterling, obviously, banned from the NBA by Adam Silver for life, according to this. And the NBA owner's constitution, which is something which was always private, is now something that's all of a sudden public. It's on the media website, and we can go up there and we can actually read it. And so you've had a chance to kind of look it over, and we can talk about, we've heard the owners need to vote. 22 owners or more need to vote in favor of forcing Sterling to sell the team if he's actually going to sell it. What's some of the recourse that you noticed from your reading and kind of the homework that you did before we came on the show?
Sure.
Regarding what kind of recourse the owners can take in order to force Sterling to actually sell the team?
Well, first of all, there is, as you said, there is the kind of the three-quarters of the Board of Governors, which is made up of all the owners, votes to terminate his ownership. They can do that. The grounds under which they do that are sort of murky in that it's not really specified. There's other places in the Constitution that talk about kind of minimum qualifications of ownership, but those are actually with respect to acquiring an interest in a team rather than an ongoing interest. But it's a question of whether the document would be interpreted to say, you are kind of responsible at all times for maintaining these minimum standards, and I think that's a pretty solid argument. So assuming that happens, and there can be litigation at many stages of this, the thing that would happen then is that the league would take over the operation of the team much the same way as they did with the New Orleans franchise about a decade ago now, I guess, and then move to sell it. And that puts them in a really odd position because since Donald Sterling still would have his ownership interest in the team, they're in a position of fiduciary duty for him, which means they would have to basically be acting in his best interests when seeking to sell the team, and that's where the real kind of legal battlings would go, is because they decide, well, this is a good offer, we're going to sell for this, and then he says, well, I think it's worth more, I would have held out for more, they're not acting in my best interest, and so that's kind of and I don't even want to speculate as to how long that process could take, but that's kind of from my quick reading of the Constitution, kind of where I think the choke point is going to come.
Well, Seth, let me ask you this, because my first question when I hear this is, does Donald Sterling's best interest mean that, okay, Donald Sterling's best interest is whatever he says is his best interest, or is it determined that his best interest is just whoever comes in with the highest bid?
That's, it's... First of all, I can't imagine the league is not going to sell to not to choose to sell to the highest qualified bidder. But I think he could then talk about the process. They didn't really, the way they solicited the bids or kept them secret or not, kind of depressed the price. There's all kinds of arguments that he could make, and whether they're true is almost immaterial to the fact that he could delay this process for a considerable amount of time. So. Sorry to kind of be a wet blanket here, but this isn't, if Donald Sterling chooses to drag this process out, this process is going to get dragged out a little bit.
Right. I wrote today, you have to go through the rough to get to the green sometimes, right? And that's kind of what the NBA is going to have to do in order to make this happen. So, Patrick, let's talk about this on a little bit of a happier note. I think a lot of Clippers fans are celebrating. You can talk about maybe the moral win that the NBA had from Sterling's comments, and obviously his past with racism and everything else that's gone along with that, and being a cheap owner, and I think that Clippers fans for a long time, I became a Clipper fan around 1998-ish. I know you've been a Clipper fan since, the early 90s probably. I think regardless of how long you've been a Clipper fan, you've kind of been counting down the years for how long it's going to be until this guy is no longer the owner of the team, and it kind of seems like this is around the corner. They're trying to chip it onto the green right now, and this is a real thing, right? I want to know. This is easily the greatest day. Because of that, this is easily the greatest day in franchise history, right?
Yeah, I think it is, and I don't think that means that the kind of systemic problems that were so widespread under this guy's administration, in and outside of his dealings with this franchise, it doesn't mean that any of those things have been addressed. It doesn't mean that any of the lives that were, ruined over the course of many years have been fixed. In the same way that when he paid a huge settlement because of his housing practices, that didn't fix the root problems that were going on, while he was running things. But it does give the Clipper fans a sense of hope and a sense of, if not closure, then a feeling that they can feel good about this franchise in a way that they've never been able to before. I think it's been probably an incredibly difficult time for the players the past few days, and if nothing else, for the players and the many people who work for the Clippers organization and the people who followed them for a long time. This is a really good day, and it doesn't mean that anything is fixed forever. It just means that something that should have been done a long, long time ago has been done, and it's like the beginning of a long walk, I guess. But it's really encouraging to see that the league is ready to take those steps. And the thing is, it would have been a great day regardless of whether the Clippers had won tonight. But they did win. So maybe we can talk about that, because that's really great for this team.
I say we do talk about that. That sounds like a good thing to talk about. Clippers win 113-103 tonight. That's maybe they didn't play their best game tonight, but they pulled out a 10-point win over the Warriors in a game where Blake Griffin and Chris Paul really didn't look like themselves. Jack, let's move on to you. You've been pretty quiet in the corner right now. Your golf etiquette has been spot on.
Today's game really was all about DeAndre Jordan. I think we all expected the Clippers to come out with great intensity, and after the first couple possessions, we really didn't see it. And then there was one point, I'm not sure exactly when, after the first couple minutes, DeAndre got an offensive rebound and literally threw Draymond Green to the ground, and then got fouled. And then I can't remember if it was an N1 or not. It's really irrelevant. The crowd really got into it after that. DeAndre started clapping his hands, and it was kind of the atmosphere we were all anticipating. And even though this was a very disjointed game, when Blake Griffin was in foul trouble, David Lee was in foul trouble, the Warriors played Maurice Spates and Jermaine O'Neal they played 20 minutes, 22 minutes combined, probably 10 minutes more than they wanted to. This was a game that really was the Clippers' win was kind of spurred on by the attitude in the arena, and I think that was really fostered by DeAndre. I mean, he was dominant from the opening tip on both ends, and then when he hit his free throws at the end there, he banked one in, kind of went back smiling. That's really what this win is all about. Sometimes you can get away with one, you can steal one without playing well, and I think that's what the Clippers did, and it was really on the back of DeAndre.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. DeAndre was unbelievable. Just to give you the numbers, he finished this game with 25 points, 18 rebounds, 4 blocks. He only had 2 fouls as well. He made some incredible defensive plays, and that play that you're talking about, the play where he threw Draymond Green to the ground, I mean, that was, like, to me, maybe not quite as aggressive, but kind of reminiscent of that DeJuan Blair Hasheem Thabeet play in 2009, which I think is the epitome of 2009 Big East basketball when they were co-Big East players of the year together. That's one of my favorite plays in recent college basketball history. Patrick, with that DeAndre Jordan performance, we always talk about the emotions of DeAndre Jordan. He's a very emotional player. DJ Foster always talked about the cup of coffee plays, that when DeAndre would get a dunk on one end, he used to be so much better defensively. This year, you see his energy is up consistently. Is there a reason that maybe we saw the the energy down, the performance down Game 4, and all of a sudden he bounces back and has this incredible Game 5 after really good Games 2 and 3 as well?
If I had a prop here, it would be a hat, and I would call it my pop psychology hat, and then I would put it on and get into DJ's head and explain. I don't know. I mean, I think it's not a secret that he wears his heart on his sleeve a little bit, so it would make sense that if we buy that, then, you know, certainly the last game, Game 4 and Game 5 would totally bear that out. Really confusing, distracting news that's unsettling and shakes you to your core, and confirms fears that you suspected but hadn't really, about someone that you hadn't really seen firsthand. Then you don't really play that well. And then, something, the league comes and steps in and does something that kind of addresses the thing that was the root of this stress. You play better. Like, sure, I buy that, but I don't know that, like, we have empirical. I guess there's correlation but not causality. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely plays with his heart on his sleeve, so maybe that's what happened.
And if I can jump in, getting even just past the psychological aspect, and I think that's totally valid, given kind of the kind of mood around the team, but between was it only Saturday and today? You can see the difference. But also, I think just on the court, especially defensively, Golden State in Game 4 attacked him repeatedly defensively, and were very successful early in the game, either getting, drawing him out of position and getting layups or shooting threes in his face. And that kind of seemed to set the tone and really kind of, I don't want to say discourage him, but it definitely rendered him less effective for the rest of the game. And today we saw just a completely different defensive performance from him. I think we're going to get into it later, but Steph Curry had a lot of problems handling the ball on the perimeter, and a lot of that was kind of aided by DeAndre Jordan being really on point, really aggressive, kind of hard hedging pick and rolls, which we haven't necessarily seen from the rest of the series, and that kind of carried over to other aspects, whether it was getting offensive rebounds, running the floor, putbacks, garbage baskets, block shots, making free throws down the stretch. It just kind of had those positive defensive plays early, and it just kind of cycled upwards for him and kind of kept him going through the whole game.
You said like we're going to get into it later. Let's just turn later into now right now, because Steph Curry had 8 turnovers today. He attempted, how many shots did Steph Curry attempt today? Steph Curry attempted 10 shots. He was 5 for 10 from the field. He had 8 turnovers. This was clearly not the best Steph Curry game ever. The Clippers were going after him hard. They were switching more than a Jason Bateman, Jennifer Aniston movie. That's really that rom-com joke for anyone.
Oh, wow.
I didn't get that. That was a bad movie too. I was really disappointed when I went to see that movie.
It's the worst reference.
Can't say I caught it, Fred. Go on.
It was very disappointing. It was way worse than any Disney sports movie. Which apparently I tweeted that Disney has no good sports movies, and I just got like blitzed worse than Steph Curry coming around and picking
You didn't apparently tweet that. You did tweet it. So we all saw it. We talked about it before we came on air. Fred basically said he'd never seen Angels in the Outfield, Remember the Titans, and The Mighty Ducks. And we've had multiple conversations about all these movies, Fred. It's amazing. I don't know how you did it. I'm sorry. Off on a tangent here.
I have literally cried every single time I've seen Angels. I'm proud to admit that. I think I'm like biologically required to cry every time I see that movie at the end of it. The most wonderful ending to any movie ever made. Anyway, Steph Curry struggled. 8 turnovers, wasn't really scoring, wasn't really shooting. So what was going on? We know the Clippers were switching a ton, which makes it, there was a Twitter conversation going on with like 9 different writers saying, so how do you get Steph Curry shots? You put him off the ball. The Clippers are switching like crazy. You keep him on the ball, try to run him more pick and rolls. The Clippers are just running right at him. Is this more about, Seth, I'm just going to go back to you because you brought this up. Is this more about the Clippers defense playing really, really well and scheming particularly well? Was Curry off? Was it a particular mix? And what can the Warriors do to kind of counter this strategy the Clippers have implemented?
I think it is right to give some credit to the Clippers for. I think we even might have talked about this over the weekend. like I said earlier, DJ was really much more aggressive in kind of attacking the ball handle in the pick and roll, and also Chris Paul was much more aggressive defensively. I think part of that is he didn't pick up early fouls today, so he was able to be more aggressive on the ball, and so I think a lot of it was the Clippers' defensive execution, and then for the Warriors, I think that Steph almost was surprised to see DeAndre be that aggressive, and maybe got a little impatient. I think if an adjustment that they're going to look at is, instead of him trying to turn the corner right away, kind of stretch the play out a little bit and see if and kind of question whether DeAndre can cover him across the entire top of the key, as opposed to just right on the other side of the pick. And DeAndre's wonderfully quick for his size, but I would not want him covering Steph Curry in space multiple times in the next game. So that's an adjustment I would expect to see, I guess, in Game 6.
The big problem wasn't that Steph took only 10 shots. I mean, we saw in Game 1 the Warriors kind of feasted on Steph drawing the help from DeAndre, whoever the help defender would be, and drawing Chris Paul, whoever was defending Steph as well, and then hitting the roller. And they'd play 4-on-3 from there. That can prove very effective. Steph doesn't need to take 20 shots, to really make an impact. He's one of those guys who creates so much gravity on the floor. Defense gives him so much attention. But one of the problems for the Warriors, and why it's been so easy for the Clippers to switch, and today they were switching 1 through 4. We talked about it before coming on air. There were times when Blake was guarding Steph or Blake was guarding Clay. And that's something we really didn't see in games 1 through 4. But one of the problems for Steph is that the Warriors, due to Andrew Bogut's absence, have been forced to go small. So it's been so much easier for the Clippers to switch those screens. If Andrew Bogut was on the floor and David Lee was on the floor, they wouldn't necessarily be able to do that as easily. So that's something that really needs to be considered. And as far as where the Warriors go from here, in terms of freeing up Steph a little bit, he played more off ball tonight. But if the Clippers are going to continue switching those screens on and off ball, I think someone mentioned it on Twitter, I can't remember exactly who, set those ball screens higher up on the floor so Steph can get some momentum coming around them and attack a big. And as opposed to getting strung out, you can turn that corner and then play from there. It's certainly something the Warriors need to look at going forward, and Steph needs to be much more careful with the ball as well. 8 turnovers, and they were mostly of the careless variety too. So it's not going to be good for the Warriors in Game 6 if that continues.
Yeah, I think one more thing to note as well is that the Warriors have this propensity where they love to isolate and they love to post up guys like Klay Thompson and Harrison Barnes. And so it makes it easier for the Clippers to go out and just switch on everything, because all of a sudden, like in a few fourth quarter possessions, you saw Harrison Barnes trying to post up Darren Collison after getting switches onto him. And you know what? You have to imagine the Clippers are perfectly fine with Harrison Barnes kind of out of control trying to create for this team. I mean, and so Patrick, you figure that Doc Rivers is going with this with that kind of mentality, right? That Mark Jackson is going to continually go to this sort of post-up heavy offense, and you figure if Harrison Barnes is taking a flagrant 14-footer or Klay Thompson is doing that, and that's your worst-case scenario on defense, you're probably going to be okay, right?
Yeah, I think so, to a certain degree, unless you get yourself into really silly situations. If the Warriors are really want to exploit mismatches and they're doing it to their detriment, then switching on every screen is that's a good thing for the Clippers. I think it worked a bit tonight, and it could continue to work. We mentioned this before the show. Offensively for the Warriors, Ethan Sherwood-Strauss tweeted that I think the best play was a broken play, and so there were certainly a few times where the chaos was kind of raining on both sides, and so it can be a little hard to draw a lot of conclusions out of that. But I would agree that if you can tease the Warriors into kind of trying to exploit a mismatch to the detriment of their best offensive weapons, then that's a good thing for the Clippers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been a problem with the Warriors all season. Mark Jackson, you see me sighing here just because it's so frustrating watching a team that has a player like Curry and a shooter like Clay and playmakers like Lee and Iguodala, and then even Bogut when he's healthy. But they just go to isolation ball when Jackson thinks he sees a mismatch in the post. And really, the only time you really want to go to the post is if you're going to draw a double team, or if a player is so efficient that he's going to score around a 50% clip down there. The Warriors don't have any of those guys, and they're not drawing double teams either, obviously, because the Clippers know that Harrison Barnes and even Klay Thompson, who's a skilled post player, and he's kind of exploited CP a little bit in this series. That's not the most efficient play for an offense like the Warriors, or any offense for that matter. So if the Clippers can continue to goad the Warriors into going to the post, I think that's something they need to continue to do.
Right, and let's remember that that when the Warriors aren't really getting out running, they only got 13 fast break points today. So much of their offense is they like to run the ball. I think they were sixth in the league in pace this year, I think, and they're that Steph Curry pull up jumper from three is a thing of beauty when it's going, and that's a horrifying thing to see when the Warriors are out running and they've got transition guys like Iguodala, and Thompson can pull out or can catch and shoot from the wings as well, the corners as well, when Curry's handling the ball in transition. That's something they weren't really able to do as well today. Also, let's talk Clipper offense a little bit. Chris Paul hasn't looked great. You can say maybe it's a hamstring. Maybe it's just kind of another off night. Patrick, is this something we should be worried about with Paul, who maybe looks a little bit slower, is not shooting particularly well, and a lot of his jumpers were kind of short, which is something that you think, oh no, when a guy has leg injury and his jumpers are short, that's not a very good sign.
I want to say yes, because I agree that he didn't look great. He didn't, in terms of lateral quickness. He wasn't going left a ton. You could see that he was struggling a bit. But the guy's doing a pretty good job on one of the three best offensive players in the league and the best shooter of his generation. And so it's hard to get too concerned, because I think most of us would agree that Paul is playing Curry about as well as like any point guard that's not just a defensive specialist can play.
No question.
So yeah, I mean, in that sense, I'm just not that concerned. If the Clippers get through this series and win, and he still looks like that, then what does that mean for the rest of the playoffs? Yeah, like totally, that's a concern in terms of long-term things, because hamstring injuries linger. They don't get better when you have 7 more games. Certainly not in Memphis. But it just in terms of Game 6, it seems like he should be able to be okay. I mean, he certainly made shots down the stretch tonight. I don't know if they were sustainable shots, but yeah, I mean, when he's not having to play this kind of defense, and he still looks like this on offense, then I'd be really concerned.
One thing I thought was particularly notable, staying on the starters, is that when the Clippers' defense isn't very good, it's basically when DeAndre Jordan is off the floor. And when DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin are off the floor, that's kind of when they get killed. And that's kind of what happened to the Clippers' pick-and-roll defense. It was when Big Baby was playing center in Game 1 and the Clippers fell apart, that was when the defense got pretty bad. Tonight, if you look at the minutes distribution, Blake Griffin, even though he was in foul trouble, played 36 and didn't play great by Blake's offensive standards. 36 minutes. DeAndre Jordan was very good defensively, played 38 minutes, and you look at the big men off the bench, Glenn Davis is really the only guy who's a big that came off the bench today, and he only played 8 minutes. In Game 1, we saw him play 22 minutes. This is kind of the ideal rotation, right, Seth? So how important is that for the Clippers moving forward if they can continue to, even if Blake is in foul trouble, if they can continue to get 36-plus minutes from Blake and DeAndre, how much does that help them, just being able to kind of play a small ball 4 with Danny Granger, or maybe an occasional small ball 4 with Matt Barnes, and not have to worry about Glenn Davis anchoring a defense?
Yeah, I was going to go there. Maybe like to see, especially in this matchup where they're going to be playing a kind of a hybrid 3-4 at that position anyway in terms of the Warriors. Obviously, given the drop off between Jordan and Griffin and kind of the next man up, it's a huge a huge edge to the Clippers to be able to keep those guys on the floor for 36, 38, 40 minutes a night. So that's, I mean, you're absolutely right. If they want to go far in the playoffs, those two have to avoid getting in any kind of consistent foul trouble. I think almost at this point it's hard to say which one's more important. just because like as you said, the defense falls apart with DeAndre out. Well, especially with Paul maybe being slightly limited, the offense has been sputtering. Even when Blake doesn't have a great shooting night like tonight, there's just so much he does in terms of his ability to move the ball and get other people into good spots that it's just kind of, with either of them off the floor, you almost are punting one side of the ball.
Sorry, my computer froze for a second. I heard that you're punting one side of the ball, and then I heard nothing. So I assume Seth stopped talking because nobody else was talking.
Yes, I did.
Well, there you go. That is a crazy thing that you would stop talking. That's a weird moment. So
hurtful.
So Danny Granger, just getting back to it, Danny Granger only goes 5 minutes tonight. Matt Barnes has kind of struggled a little bit. Barnes tonight ends up going 31 minutes, 6 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. Seth, if you had to, and Jamal Crawford, of course, off the bench, who we've neglected to mention, 19 points on 13 shots. Or actually, Patrick, if you got to name kind of a role player who was the most important from this game, who are you going to go with?
Oh, that's kind of tricky in this game because it was kind of in fits and spurts. Collison had some really big minutes in the first half when it kind of seemed like the game was falling apart, and he made some shots. And then also down the stretch. And then also, Crawford made some Jamal Crawford shots that were, just kind of spectacular to watch. And you find yourself questioning the nature of reality when he takes it. 'Cause you're like, what? Why would you do? Oh, it's good, awesome. And so, they were both really valuable. I thought Matt Barnes wasn't that bad tonight. He definitely had some Barnesian moments, as he'll do. But the fact that the Clippers can get away with basically 2 big men playing serious minutes is impressive. And of course, it wouldn't be the case if Bogut were playing, but it still kind of shocks me that they just don't go to their big bigs off the bench at all. So impressive game. Impressive that everyone escaped unscathed for such a ragged game.
It was
Just real quick, it'll be interesting to see. I'm presuming that the Clippers will advance, as I have before the series started when I predicted a sweep. That hasn't worked out, but whatever. Predictions don't mean anything. I was just going to say,
unless you're right. If you're right,
unless you're right, I shouldn't have mentioned it at all. No one would have cared. In this next round, it looks like the Blazers are likely going to advance to face the Clippers. And
no, Memphis or Oklahoma City.
Oh, well, yikes, Fred. Because I even looked up what I thought was the bracket, like right in front of me, so this wouldn't happen to me.
No, Jack, you know that the basketball gods have made a pact to make sure that the Clippers and the Grizzlies have to play in the playoffs every single year, no matter what. They're like magnets. They're attracted. They're opposite ends of a magnet, and they are attracted to each other no matter what, and they always have to play in the playoffs. Grizzlies play 3 teams in the playoffs every year. They play the Spurs, they play the Thunder, and they play the Clippers. They played 7 playoff series over the last 4 years, and they've only played those 3 teams. Same thing every year.
The point actually still applies then, whether it's the Grizzlies or the Thunder. The Clippers are going to need someone to, because we were saying how they've been playing small, and Big Baby hasn't been getting any minutes. They're going to need him to step up this next round because the Grizzlies obviously play very, very, very big, and the Thunder, depending on how much Scott Brooks is going to play Kendrick Perkins, and I think we all know that it's going to be more than it should be. The Clippers are going to need to go big when Blake or DeAndre is out of the game. I'm not sure they'll be able to get away with Barnes or Granger playing the role of nominal 4 against the Grizzlies with the Thunder. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I agree with you, and I do think it will be interesting. I will say that I think you can get away with Glenn Davis a little bit on Randolph, in a way that a bouncier, longer power forward or gives him troubles, or he can't do anything against the Grizzlies centers. But that is something I feel like he could gear up for that one a little bit.
Yeah, and if they end up going up against Oklahoma City, who ended up losing tonight in a fourth consecutive overtime game, which is just totally, literally unheard of because it's the first time in playoff history that a series has had four straight overtime games. So it is literally unheard of that would happen. Just with Westbrook and Durant going to the rim when Glenn Davis is on the floor, like anytime Glenn Davis is playing center, you have to make sure at least one of those guys is on the floor for Scott Brooks. Just going right at the rim. I think that just from a rim protector standpoint, it might be scarier. I don't know how poorly Glenn Davis matches up with Zach Randolph because I think his bigger issues defensively are just rotating to the right spots, knowing where to be, knowing that he shouldn't just double team random guys for no reason at all, and not tell his teammates that he's going to do it. Just kind of go there closed mouthed and be like, all right, and just kind of look like a kid who got his hand caught in the cookie jar every single time he gets caught in the wrong spot defensively. I mean, if he's got the body where he can bully back Zebo. So that's kind of the thing where maybe that's not as bad of a matchup where it would be for something else when you need a rim protector, need someone to play pick and roll defense on Westbrook and Ibaka, that kind of, I would not want him having to guard Ibaka on a pick and pop. That sounds like a scary recipe for the Clippers. And Ibaka is just going to hit every one of those shots. Let's talk about quickly predictions for Game 6. Clippers lead 3-2. My pre-series prediction was that the Clippers would split the first two, split the two in Oakland, win Game 5, and then they would close at Game 6 on the road. Andrew Hahn said that we were all, I think like three of us on our playoff preview show picked Clippers in 6. And Andrew he either called us idiots or he called us stupid. I can't remember. Just to add effect, I'm going to say he called us stupid idiots. And I'm going to say that if the Clippers win Game 6, that Andrew is never, ever going to hear the end of it. Like it's absolutely never going to happen. I'm going to pick the Clippers to win Game 6 and close out the series. What say you, Jack?
I like the Warriors in Game 6, actually. I really, it's true what they say, Oracle is a real thing, and I really think Oracle is going to be live for Game 6, and Mark Jackson's going to make some adjustments. He's going to free Steph Curry a little bit. And the other thing is Steph just tends to come out far more aggressive at home than he does on the road, so that's another thing to consider. So I have the Warriors taking Game 6, but the Clippers ultimately advancing.
I picked the Clippers in 6, so I guess I should stick with that. Although I'm not super confident after tonight. I am being convinced by Jack to kind of hedge that a little bit. I'll stick with my pick, but I'll feel bad about it. How about that?
I think the Clippers close it out in 6. I think that while Oracle's a real thing, I think that the Warriors are going to come out tight in that game. One of the kind of the buried stories of today, which we didn't really get into, was kind of the new revelations about kind of what has actually gone on in kind of the Warriors coaching staff shenanigans over the course of the year. And it's going to be some as the media kind of moves past the Sterling issue and then the next day or so and starts to ask Mark Jackson, so how much did you and Darren Erman really hate each other, and stuff like that, and that becomes the story. I feel like the expectations and the pressure and the fact that he's probably coaching for his job, I can foresee the Warriors coming out very tight in Game 6, and the Clips taking advantage of it and closing it out.
So you all
I'm sorry, Fred, go on.
Go ahead. Go crazy.
From an X's and O's standpoint, I've kind of been riding that train for the last year and a half. That he leaves a bit to be desired in that department. But from a motivational standpoint, you talk to the Warriors players, you talk to guys around the organization. They really believe in him, probably more than they should, if we're being honest about it. But they really believe in Mark Jackson, and I don't think they're going to be distracted by anything going on with Darren Erman or anything that happened with Scalabrine. And frankly, I'm not even sure that's how big of a story that's going to be, because Jackson won't let it be a big story. He's very good with the media. We all know that, and they do a very good job of kind of shutting out critics and kind of staying a real, true team. That's something Jackson really buys into, and he gets his guys to buy into that. So The Warriors very well may lose Game 6, but I don't think the Darren Erman relative controversy will have anything to do with it.
And on that note, that is actually going to do it for us. The Clippers win Game 6 113-103 over the Warriors to take a 3-2 series lead. For Jack Winter, Patrick James, and Seth Partnow, I'm Fred Katz. We'll see you Thursday night after Game 6.